First, they wrote it off as a joke. Then they said he could not win the nomination. Then they said the general election was totally hopeless. The political class was caught by surprise by Donald Trump's rise, to say the least, and 3 months later, they still have not recovered or learned much from it. But Professor Mark Blythe at Brown University says Trump's win wasn't surprising. He's a professor in political economy. He says the roots of Trump's win go all the way back to the 1980s or earlier. Professor Blythe joins us now from Providence. Professor, thanks a lot for coming on. I wanted to have you on because I saw a lecture that you gave, I think it was November 24th, and I thought it was one of the smartest things I'd ever heard about American politics, and I mean that, and I hope our viewers will look it up. But in it you said, look, I'm a Democrat, I'm not a Trump supporter, but this was not a surprise, his victory, because it was rooted in economic conditions, and as you put it, it was not a local event. Will you explain what you meant?
Yeah, certainly. Let's go back to the 1970s and start there, the last time capitalism was being questioned by a bunch of people. Back then we had an inflationary crisis. And part of that was because labour markets got really, really tight and wages were being bid up all the time. The only way businesses can respond to this is by pushing prices up. And then when you push prices up, wages move, and that's what creates the inflation. So to break that spiral, we raised interest rates, deregulated the financial sector, what we now call globalized production chains, moved factories around, and the world changed. And when we did this, we started caring about full employment as a thing. We started to care about price stability. Now run this out, and what you get is a world where productivities continue to go up, but wages for a lot of people, particularly in the heartland, have stagnated. That heartland's not just in the US, it's in Sunderland in the United Kingdom, which explains Brexit. It's in France in the industrial regions. So this is a common story. And in response to that break between productivity and wages, you've got a world of super low prices where it's very hard to get a pay rise. What have people done in response? They've levered up. They've taken on lots of debt, lots of personal debt. And that debt, is very hard to pay that back when your wages aren't rising. So the notion that we have politicians everywhere saying everything's fine, vote for us, we've got full employment, when the lived experience of people through this past 30 years is one where their wages buy less and less and their prospects are narrower and narrower, just rings hollow. So Trump is not an isolated phenomenon, it's breaking out everywhere. So,
and without inflation, of course, it's harder to pay that debt off. So I have two questions for you. The first, you had a line in here, and I actually didn't check these numbers, and I should, and hopefully they're right. You said in 2015, Wall Street bonuses totaled $28.4 billion in the United States, just the bonuses. Meanwhile, total compensation for all Americans working for minimum wage, total compensation, was $14 billion, less than half.
Yeah, it was half.
So the case you're making is that globally, the middle class is dying. Is that an overstatement?
It's not as much of an overstatement as we would want it to be, because sadly it's true. Think about it this way, another simple statistic. Most Americans, that is more than half of all Americans who are working today, are working for less than $22 an hour. Yet at the same time, the economy's never been richer, it's never been more productive. That average should be much higher. So when you have politician after politician, of both Republican and Democrat, coming into areas like the blue wall states that are supposedly rock solid and telling them everything's okay when clearly it's not, then of course you're going to get a reaction to that.
So why, I mean, because we know that political turmoil is bad, but it almost always follows economic turmoil. So this is clearly a problem, and it's been decades in the making, and you've noted it, and others have, to be fair. Why didn't the political class respond to it in a meaningful way?
To take the American story, so much of it, I think, has to do with campaign finance. I mean, so much of the system is set up gearing all the time to raising money. And when you've developed an economy where that money basically belongs to a very small segment of society, it becomes an insider game. And when you have a polity which is its own little bubble, as Washington, D.C. uniquely is, and everyone talks to each other, they're immune to signals coming elsewhere. But what I also saw this with Brexit. The chattering classes in London could not believe that the British people would vote their way out of the EU. It doesn't make any sense. We're much better off. Well, to those people, those connections are just not as clear.
No, they're not at all. And more turmoil ahead if they don't recognize it. Professor, thanks a lot for joining us. Really interesting. November 24th.